There's a long tradition of burying stuff under plants to give them a boost. Compost and fertilisers for sure, but fish and bananas? Lots of gardeners swear on burying things like these under fruiting vegetables such as tomatoes. But honestly, does it really work? And crucially, will I get more to pick? Well, that's exactly what I wanted to find out this spring. So I set up a little experiment and today we're going to find out the results. But first, let's hop back to the start. So let's set up our little experiment. I've got 3 tomato plants to plant. They're all exactly the same age and the same variety, so we can fairly compare between them. The only variables in this experiment are what's planted beneath them. Underneath tomato 1, we're going to plant some overripe bananas. Beneath tomato 2 goes some fish, in this case sardines. And then our third tomato is our control. Nothing's going to go underneath this one, so we have a standard tomato to compare against. They're all going to go against the end wall of the greenhouse here. Now they could of course go outside, but I wanted to reduce the risk of foxes and other animals digging up the fish. This happened to me last year and they scattered the tomatoes everywhere, so I wanted to avoid that. As you can see, this is a lovely warm and sunny position. I improved the soil earlier in the winter with a little bit of well-rotted manure and then a good few handfuls of bone meal, and that will really help with root development. Yes, there is some nutrients already in there, but I don't anticipate this lasting all season, so I'm pretty sure we should see a pronounced influence from those bananas and fish. Let's plant then, and each tomato gets a nice deep planting hole that's at least twice as deep as the pot it's currently in. I'm going to plant them about 18 inches to 24 inches apart, which is 45 to 60 centimetres. So tomato number 1 is going to go in. And for these I've got sardines. I've chosen sardines because that's what most people will be able to easily buy. But if you can get yourself some fish heads and bones, all the better. The sardines, the only ones I could find are either in brine, and I don't want salty water in the hole, or sunflower oil. I don't really want that either. So the first job is to give these a thorough wash to rinse off the oil and salt. Fish contains all of the main plant nutrients that we're after: nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. And as these guys rot down, they'll slowly release all of this goodness for the plants to take up. That will fuel really strong growth and hopefully plenty of fruits as well. The bones also contain calcium, of course, which should help prevent things like blossom end rot. Only time will tell, of course. But this technique has a long history, with the Native Americans known to have buried fish to use as fertiliser, burying it with their corn seeds to speed growth and plant health. That does smell a bit, so I'm going to just cover it with a little bit of a layer of soil just to give the roots something to kind of get into before they get into that fish. Give it a chance to rot down beforehand. Now I'm going to plant these plants, obviously, but I'm going to remove the lowest leaf in this case here, because I'm hoping to part bury the stem, and this will encourage it to produce more roots to really anchor it in place. So now let's just get it planted. On to tomato 2, and for that we've got these manky old bananas. If I was to bury these whole, they'd probably take a bit longer to break down, so I'm going to slice them up first into smaller rounds to help things along. Like fish, bananas are full of goodness, but especially potassium, which is the number 1 nutrient needed for flower and fruit development. So I have high hopes for this tomato. The bananas are in, and now, like the fish, I'm just going to cover them with a cushion of our normal soil, and then simply plant tomato number 2. I'll give these all a good water once I've finished planting them, so just get them planted for now. And then last of all, our third tomato, the control. Nothing's going to go underneath this one, but I do want to bury it at the same height as the other tomatoes there. So a bit deeper, like that. That should do it. That's them planted. Now I just have to water them in and get their sort of canes in to give them their vertical supports, and that should be it. And that's it. All we need to do now is wait. So it's 8 weeks on after planting and time to check in on our tomatoes. How are they doing? Now, they haven't had any additional fertiliser since we planted them. All they've had is just good old water. But what we can see is that all 3 plants have got quite a healthy trusses of tomatoes developing, so we will soon be picking. They're looking really splendid, in fact, all of them, no doubt helped by the fantastic summer we're having. And here we are a few weeks on, and our tomatoes, the first pickings, are ready. Now, the first tomato to start colouring up was in fact the one with fish beneath, but they all look pretty similar in the amount of ripe fruits they've now got. The proof is in the pudding, as they say, so what I'm going to do is pick them from each of the plants here and then weigh them to see what we've got for our first harvest. Now, at first glance, it looks like the fish and the control tomatoes here have produced the most and the banana the least, but we'll weigh them and check. Now, I've picked only the ones that are perfectly ripe. There is still some more to pick, but I'll wait for them to colour up and then I will weigh those as well. I've also removed the little green bit at the end called the calyx, so we've got nice consistency. Let's weigh. That's us done. Let's put up the results on the screen now. As you can see, the tomato with the banana beneath it is lagging at this early stage, but nevertheless, I'd say it's still a very respectable first picking for all our tomato plants. The next picking was remarkable for how evenly distributed the tomatoes were across all 3 plants, but take a look at the next picking just 2 weeks on. The fish and control tomatoes have slowed right down, leaving the banana tomato to dramatically jump ahead, making up for its slow start earlier in the summer. And here's a table showing the cumulative totals right up to this point. Well, it's the first day of autumn today and there's no more flowers on my tomatoes, so I'm going to call it and take our final harvest and then weigh them to see where we're at. Will the banana tomato stay out on top? Well, we'll see. And here are the results of that final picking, and the banana tomato is still ahead. And let's pull all of those results together to get our grand final totals. So it's our banana tomato that comes convincingly out in front, producing an average of 28% more tomatoes than our fish and control tomatoes. Now, it did get off to a slow start, didn't it? But I suspect that's simply because it took a little bit of time for the bananas to start breaking down. Now, many gardeners do lay banana skins around their tomato plants because they're rich in potassium and help feed their plants. And others will actually make a tea by steeping banana skins in water to then apply to their tomatoes. I was a little bit disappointed with our fish tomato, if I'm honest. I had great expectations for this. Now, there may be a few reasons behind it. Perhaps there was still quite a lot of oil or salt on the sardines that affected the roots, or maybe the sardines just didn't have enough time to break down fully. Fish has historically shown good results, so I think if I tried this experiment again, I'd use maybe just lots more of it, because I only used 2 small tins of sardines. Perhaps I'll get some scraps from the fishmongers. In the meantime though, I've made a fish emulsion fertiliser very successfully using scraps and used it all around the garden to great effect. So perhaps that's better to use in that way, and I'll link to a video on that fish fertiliser in the description below. This little experiment is far from perfect. I think one of the shortcomings is that these taller vining tomatoes either side here were fed regularly with the tomato feed and that fish fertiliser, and there may have been some leaching that affected the fish and the control tomato either side. The roots may have picked up some of that goodness. But here's the thing, even if that's the case, the banana tomato, way in the middle and away from them, still triumphed. So the question is, would I bury bananas under my tomatoes again? Well, do you know what? Yes, I think I would. It's an easy, low impact, plant-based and crucially affordable way to give my tomatoes a free boost. But I'd also be sure to add maybe my usual tomato feed just to be sure. Now, I know what you've been thinking. What remains beneath these tomatoes? Can we see any of those remnants of those bananas or fish? Well, let's dig the plants up and take a look. This really does satisfy my childlike curiosity. It's great fun, but I'm not seeing any trace of the sardines under here. The soil is lovely and rich, and there's an earthworm here that's clearly enjoying the nice cool environment down here, but there's literally no trace of the fish at all. Well, the tomato must have taken up some of that nutrient. Yeah, once again, there's nothing under here. A bit disappointing. I was hoping for something, but I guess it shows that things break down pretty quickly, especially if they got roots searching and drawing nutrients from them. So I didn't plant anything underneath the control tomato, obviously, but I was just digging it up to see if there's a change in the soil, and it feels a bit drier and there are no earthworms in this hole. So we've definitely improved the organic content for our roots in both the fish and the banana holes. So there we have it. Bananas, it seems, really can help tomatoes grow stronger and more productive. Maybe fish can too, but our little experiment didn't show it this time round. Now, for more on growing tomatoes, please do check out my full, complete and thoroughly comprehensive masterclass on tomatoes that we put out earlier in the year. You can catch up with it here, and I will catch you next time.